the stage is set once again for a fairly flat open for the ASX 200. We've got materials firmly in focus, but I think it's interesting to see BHP, the ADR there closed up about 1.1%. Vale's US listing was up about 2.1%. Now we saw a fairly shaky night in iron ore again. You know, the spot price was down about 1% or so. Gold has dropped a touch as we've seen real yields pushing up a few basis points. You've seen oil prices down about 70 basis points. No real follow through from the buying we saw through Asian session yesterday. That price sort of about turned. The commodity which actually did see some decent upside was copper. That high grade closed up about 2.5%. So some of the copper stocks may see some love today, but certainly it's the indications are that the materials sector is actually going to open up a little bit higher, even though we have the commodity leads facing some headwinds coming through there. If we have a look at US markets, fairly flat markets there. In fact, incredibly flat markets. But financials are working quite well. We're seeing some buying coming through there. A bit of a steepening of the curve. Obviously, very good for financials. The financial sector up 1.1%. Quite like the XLF, which is the financial sector ETF, as a short-term trade as we go into next week Fed meeting. I think that's going to be very important. We saw the ECB meeting overnight. I think they did change their inflation forecast for 2018. They dropped them down to 1.3%. In fact, everything that we heard from Mario Draghi was probably more on the dovish side. We haven't seen much of a reaction in euro. It's down a touch. But there's no real moves in the rates market, no real moves in fixed income, and that's a bit of a surprise, to be honest. I'm surprised we didn't see the premium demanded for US Treasuries over bunds widening more than we did. We only widened about 3 basis points, which would have caused more of a reaction in euro dollar. But everything I saw there was slightly more dovish at the margin, what the market was pricing in and what it was expecting. He has said they have dropped the reference in Europe that they are going to, they officially in the statement that they were going to cut, they could ease monetary policy further. That should be expected by the market. But Mario Draghi in the press conference did suggest to people that they could take that rate down if needed to be. And there was actually only a couple of people within the governing council who were looking to normalise policy sooner rather than later. So I still think there's a dovish shift there from the ECB, but that wasn't really reiterated in markets. The big talking point on the floor this morning, there's no doubt whatsoever, it's all about the UK election. The exit polls have come in at 7 o'clock this morning and showed that Theresa May is about 12 seats shy of getting the majority. Certain polls, or certainly the Survation poll was bang on the money with that one. But most of the polls, I think the market was positioned for about a 70-80 point majority from Tory party, and we've seen cable absolutely decimated, down about 1.6%. If you look at sterling against the G10 complex so far, it's down about 1.5% to about 1.8% against G10 pairs. Certainly sterling against the Kiwi dollar's had a decent fall. And sterling yen looking quite weak as well. It is important to stress this is just an exit poll. They were fairly accurate in 2015, predicting a Tory win when no one was really expecting a majority, but it did understate the size of the majority. Now we're going into some of these swing states. We've seen Sunderland coming out. That's an important number there. Obviously voting very heavily in favour of Labour. But I'll be having a look at Nuneaton when that comes out a little bit later on today. That's a very key bellwether. You go into Thurrock, which comes out at 11 o'clock. What's the extent of the move in Tories there? And I think the big one is Dartford. That comes out a little bit later on this afternoon. Dartford has predicted every election and the success of every election since 1964. So we're keeping an eye firmly on some of the swing seats, keeping our eye firmly on the bellwethers. But I wouldn't be surprised now if we did see a bit of a melt up in the pound, given there is still a chance that the exit polls do understate the chance of a Tory win, and we could see that coming through. But if we do see a hung parliament, there's going to be a lot of tensions coming through, because the Lib Dems have already ruled out working with the Tories again as a coalition. Obviously, they got burnt pretty heavily 5 years ago. We know that the Irish Unionists are very keen to work with Theresa May's government. There is obviously the chance now that we could see a hung parliament coming through or fresh elections coming through. Either way, we are one step closer to Theresa May having a vote of no confidence and potentially having to step down.